From what you have seen and from the narratives we've heard from DHS, where does this stand and how do you see it?
What I see is that there is an individual on the ground. We have some quite clear video of this now. I've posted the clearest video on my X account that you can see, and you can see really quite clear angles. The individual is doing nothing to threaten the ICE agents. What the individual was doing ahead of time was videotaping. And then a bystander seemed to need some help, so he went to help that person. That's when the ICE agents took him to the ground, which they did, and they did pretty quickly. There were a number of them, five or six, taking him to the ground. He had there was no punching by him or so forth. He was on the ground. Then one of the ICE agents saw that there was a gun in his holster on a belt that he had not been reaching for and removed the gun. It was right at that point that another ICE agent who already had pulled out his gun shot this individual. Well, the individual was restrained on the ground. There was no evident issue that he needed to be more restrained. And then after that, another volley of shots, it could have been five, six, or seven, by multiple ICE agents were shot into the man until he did not move.
Goodness, and that's kind of what a lot of people have been seeing here. So as you know, we are covering this protest at 1 o'clock ish. There's another one at 3 o'clock. Mayor Brandon Johnson's going to be at the one at 1 o'clock. A lot of people, I have a feeling, we haven't gotten there yet, haven't spoken to them, but they feel helpless. We've gone to these protests before. Do you gauge that's what a lot of people are feeling when they go to these? But I mean, they continue to show up.
I would say two things. First, know that I've been studying military deployments and crowd control by democracies, including by the United States, for a long period of time, many, many years, including almost all of the instances during the summer of 2020 with George Floyd. So I know quite a bit about these issues. I also work with the Sheriff's Department and so forth, and have since 2017, even before George Floyd. Second thing to know is we have done representative surveys of the city of Chicago at my center, the University of Chicago Project on Security and Threats. We did one in the fall after Operation Midway Blitz began. So I know something about what the residents in the city of Chicago think, not just anecdotally and not just who shows up to protest, but for the city as a whole. And there's two big things to tell you about what the city of Chicago already thought last fall, and I'm sure feels the same way now. Number one, over 60% do not want federal agents in the city of Chicago, and only 20%, 21% do. So that's a 3-to-1 ratio against those federal agents in the city of Chicago. There's about 20% who are ambivalent and don't know, but it's 3-to-1 against. The second thing to know is that 54% of the residents of the city of Chicago think the main goal is political control, not to reduce crime, not to even deport. That the main purpose of the ICE and the federal agents in the city of Chicago is to impose political control on the city. And what's interesting also about that is that's two-thirds of the Democrats in the city of Chicago think that, but over a third, 36% of Republicans in the city of Chicago also think that. Now, the Democrats probably don't like that. The Republicans probably think that's their way to get a Republican mayor. But those are the facts on the ground, not simply intuiting or watching from television. Now, we say protesters are showing up. So our surveys also show that large fractions of the people believe they would attend, even if there is some violence, by which they probably mean violence by ICE against them. Now, the fact that large portions say they would doesn't tell us the whole city will come or anything like that, but it does tell us that we should not be surprised that these protests are happening over and over and over again. The other thing to tell you is studying military affairs for 30 years, including with the Pentagon and so forth and so on. Notice this is happening on one of the most frigid days in Chicago this year. Well, weather is a huge issue with any sort of crowd, military, and so forth and so on, which is why you rarely see a war start in the middle of January. The what you are seeing here is truly, truly a sign of tremendous unease and upset. What you are seeing here is people feeling there are no constraints on ICE and that it's operating with impunity. You're also seeing worse people feeling powerless to stop this through political channels, and they don't want to wait for the midterms to hope things will fix it. So that's what you are seeing on the ground, and this is quite a combustible situation.
Because I mean, like, what are these protests that we keep seeing around the country, like No Kings and what we're going to see today? Are they successful, and what makes a protest successful?
Well, what makes so first of all, the No Kings protest, which we had on October 18 in the city of Chicago, had 250,000 plus people marching and not a sign of violence anywhere. So the first thing to know is that that No Kings protest on October 18th with 250,000 people demonstrates that the people of the city of Chicago are not just inherently looking for a fight or something like that. And so this idea that they need to be suppressed because they are out of control inherently is just not true and demonstrably not true. Now, what protests can do is they can bring attention. They can call attention to the urgency of an issue, which they are clearly doing. They can hope to persuade, in this case, it would be the Trump administration, to pull back and to change their mind, to show that they are operating. But the most important thing is that what these large protests do is show that what the Trump administration is doing has no legitimacy. See, the Trump administration has power. And if they invoke the Insurrection Act and the Supreme Court goes along with it, they'll have legal authority to use that power. That's not the same thing as legitimacy. Legitimacy is always the key, however. We teach our military when they go overseas in field manuals, FM 3-24, that it's the legitimacy that matters. And that's why our military goes to such great lengths to project images of restraint and legitimacy, because we know from research, from other operations since World War II, that legitimacy is what is the key. Well, that is what these protests are signaling more than anything else, is that the operations and the way they are being carried out has little legitimacy. And that is really what is the crucial thing to going forward.
So, I mean, what do we do at this point? Keep protesting?
What we do at this point is we start to think more seriously about our political leaders calling for moratorium. So coming up with more clear, not just simply say go home, because that's just too open-ended. The federal government is not just simply going to say, oh, yes, we're going to do nothing in this situation. We need to start to get on a more direct track. Mayor Johnson, you may not remember, but at the end of August, this is just before Operation Midway Blitz began, gave on a Friday his most not his most, but one of a very constructive speech where he started to lay out in detail how the city of Chicago police could cooperate to reduce problems with crime. And he was specifically trying to get a handle on the gun problem that's sweeping through the city of Chicago and the problem with Indiana as an access point. Well, those are the kinds of things we need to get back on. We need to, Mayor Johnson, open that door. That's not the final door, but those are the ways to move forward here to channel all of this anger and energy into something more productive here. And right now, we're not seeing any signs of that coming from the Trump administration. So, to the extent that channeling will happen, it will have to happen from our local leaders here in the city and the state.